Welcome to Money Wise Law. My name is Jay Fleischman. With me is Gene Melchione. Hey, Gene, how's it going?
Fine. I'm pretty
Fine.
cool. I'm cool today.
Question I've got here is if my spouse is filing for bankruptcy, will I be affected? My spouse is filing for bankruptcy. I'm not planning on filing with them. We do not have any joint property or debt together. Uh, Gene, you want to kick it off? Will spousey be affected?
The answer is probably not. The real issue there is that they don't tell us where they are. So a lot of this can be an issue of state law. And don't know what kind of debt is involved. So if we're talking about standard credit card debt, probably not. But who knows? I mean, it could be doctor bills. And if doctor bills are involved, then there might be an issue with state law that makes the spouse responsible for those.
Okay,
Uh,
so let's pretend that these are not doctor bills, and let's
okay.
pretend that we are in Connecticut or New York, and then we can talk about um, some of the issues that may arise in states like California and other states that have community property laws.
Right. So putting it into the microcosm of the Northeast, then I would say no, there shouldn't be any effect of the spouse filing bankruptcy separately and not being involved. If there's no joint debt, there's no joint property, and there's really no other tie other than being married.
Right. So there's no where I get hung up with the question is, will I be affected?
Yeah.
And what does
Well,
that
yeah.
and what does that mean? Are you going to be affected? I would say that as far as your credit's concerned, with and again, we'll stay in the Connecticut, New York, what are called equitable distribution states. I would say that credit wise and financially, you're not going to be affected, but you will be affected, right?
There's so many ways to be affected. Absolutely. I mean, let's say the house is in the husband's name and the wife doesn't own any. The husband is one who files. Maybe he's got non-exempt equity. Maybe that forces the house to be sold. Maybe there's other issues of property that the wife's name is not on, but he's going to lose if he files bankruptcy.
Right.
Or there's credit out there that maybe she doesn't use, but the family depends on in order to survive. Then yeah, it's going to be affected.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to be affected. It's a how do you define the word is?
As was said in a remarkable deposition by a former sitting president. Um, but yeah, the upshot is that whenever one spouse has a financial situation of any sort, bankruptcy or collections or good things, financial windfalls, it's going to affect the household, or at least it should affect the household because that's
It's
what a household is, right?
a family unit. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
There
So
is more than one part. It's the total sum of the parts.
exactly. Now, in a community property state, a state like, say, California, there are a couple of community property states, primarily in the West, if memory serves. Like I know Arizona is a community property state. Um, California is it's the big one, but there are a couple of them. In
Everything that falls into the sea after the earthquake.
exactly. Though the East Coast will be falling into the sea as well, but that's climate change. Um, we'll all be living with our friends in Kansas. Um, so in a community property state, all debts incurred after the date of marriage and before the date of separation with and I said all, but that's um, overly inclusive. There are some exceptions, are considered uh, debts of the community. Uh, there are assets of the community. And so if you've got community debts or community assets, um, even a even a bankruptcy may not protect all of the spouse's assets, um, income, bank accounts, things like that. So in that situation, it may impact the non-filing spouse. It does depend upon the kind of bankruptcy, um, 13 or 7, whether there's whether the debt is paid back in full or in part. Um, so that's where the it depends comes into play, and that's where you really need to sit down with an attorney.
You're
Um,
making my head hurt.
yeah, it makes my head hurt too, all the time. Um, the upshot is again that whether you live in an community property state or an equitable distribution state, what happens with one spouse inherently impacts the other spouse in some fashion. So sit down, talk to a lawyer, figure it all out, whatever's going to work in your situation with respect to your individual assets, your individual debts, community. If you're in a community property state, this is where things tend to get a little sticky.
Absolutely. And then of course there's always the emotional question too. So that's something a lawyer can't deal with, but you certainly have to think and talk it through.
So, hope that answers your question. Until next time, my name is Jay Fleischman. With me is Gene Melchione. You can find me at moneywiselaw.com. You can find Gene at ctbankruptcy.com. I am licensed in the states of New York and California. Gene is licensed in the state of Connecticut. So, if you've got a question in any of those states, you can certainly get in touch with us. If you've got a question about bankruptcy in any other state, my recommendation is that you go to the National Association of Consumer Bankruptcy Attorneys at nacba.com, correct? It's .com?
.org.
.org.
.com will get you there too, but .org is that way you can remember it's an organization.
It's the official one. And
Yeah.
you can look for an attorney in any state of the union. If you've got any questions, you can send them over to us, and we'll certainly do our best to answer it. Until next time, take care.